Hey and welcome, I'm Hammeh and it's that time of year, Blizzcon speculation time. What's going to be coming for Overwatch? Well, with a change to Route 66 on the PTR and the payload changing just a little bit, I'm going to have a talk about why that could mean something, maybe for an animated short, maybe for a new hero, talk about what we do and don't know about Route 66, and also have a chat about what else might be coming for BlizzCon. Timecodes in the description below if you'd like to skip. With just over a week to go until BlizzCon 2018 kicks off and we find out what's new for Overwatch for late 2018 and into 2019, an October developer update just released, and Jeff said that although there was going to be no map content announced at BlizzCon, although it's being worked on, the team still felt we would be happy with what we'd see. Well, what are we going to expect and what could possibly be pointing to what hints? Well, first things first, there has been a change to Route 66 on the PTR, previously the payload, which has been cited in the past, actually ever since it launched as being a weapon. Some have said a nuke, others have said a bomb of some kind. I need to find the precise citation, but that goes back to when it was announced way back in the beta of Overwatch. We know that it's a weapon of some description. However, now the casing, if you have a look on the PTR change, has come off. There is kind of some sort of gas or some sort of coolant or something leaking from around it, and there is a space where something is obviously missing. Okay, well, what do we actually know about Route 66? Well, the description of the map back when it was launched effectively said that the Deadlock Gang outlaws were planning or are planning their biggest heist yet. And the heist, presumably from the look of the level, was blowing up these military-style train cars, getting what was in this sort of weapon, then transporting it back to their hideout. So the map lore has always been the Deadlock Gang taking something back to their hideout, as far as we know, and the defending team actually trying to stop them from getting there. Now, what might point to something actually being to do with BlizzCon and this change is there is a history of voice lines on this map that give us a bit of an idea as to people's relationship with it. Obviously, McCree, an ex-member of the Deadlock Gang, was a member of the gang until a sting operation where he was effectively given a choice by Reyes, later to become Reaper, join Blackwatch and Overwatch, or rot in jail, effectively, and he decided to go for the former. He's still not really happy with the place. He obviously has this voice line.
Doesn't feel right coming back here.
And interestingly, very, very recently with the Halloween update, it's been reinforced in a new interaction with Genji. There was a bunch of interactions, the video is below, but McCree actually comments again on his relationship with Deadlock Gorge.
Why have you come back to this place, McCree?
The only thing it ever is. Unfinished business and unhappy history.
Soldier 76 as well inferred, even though we know this from the map description, that the Deadlock Gang were never fully cleaned up by Reyes, and I wonder what the reason for that was, apart from his recruitment of McCree.
Reyes should have cleaned up the Deadlock Gang a long time ago.
So, if the Deadlock Gang are still running operations, well, what could this mean? Well, map changes in Overwatch generally, apart from a few small exceptions, herald either a new hero or perhaps an animated short. Last year, of course, we had the subtle changes on Oasis, Mercy's paper in the Oasis University spawn, and some of Moira's papers as well that led to Moira being announced. We have had changes that occasionally don't herald a map change, have just been an update, like the additions of the Ana Amari Shrike posters on Temple of Anubis. But as with the Numbani payload changes before Doomfist and similar, there generally tend to be little tweaks. This is the week before BlizzCon. It feels like this is an odd one to change without there being something to do with it. So, what of a McCree animated short? Well, a lot of people have said, would that fit in terms of Overwatch moving the story forward? Would it help us have a look in the past? And how would it fit in terms of other things? Well, I think in some ways it would fit the bill. If we have a think about the last couple of animated shorts, Reinhardt's Honor and Glory, and indeed Diva's Shooting Star, they have reflected a little bit on the past in the case of Reinhardt's, whilst moving the story forward in terms of the Overwatch recall. I actually think that a McCree animated short could do similar. We'd have a window into the past in terms of looking at McCree's early life, his relationship with the Deadlock Gang, how he got into the gang, and then of course we could see Blackwatch in action as well, maybe early Overwatch in action. We could see Reyes in action and his motivations at that point in time. It would make it quite a Blackwatch centric year, obviously, because we've had Retribution earlier this year in the Archives event, and there's also a reason as to why McCree is coming back to Deadlock Gorge, as the interaction with Genji might suggest. Why is he coming back? There might be a reason. He might be trying to stop the gang, he might be finishing some unfinished business or similar. It lets us have a look at the current day of the story and then see what happens to McCree. Maybe he gets the recall after this. So there could be potential to reflect on the present and move the story forward as well, and Overwatch, like the animated shorts as of late, to do a bit of that. The other theory that people have kind of mentioned, there's always been, if you're a lore fan, until recently, until this year, a bit of a lack of lore for a few characters. People have liked sort of, and indeed in my videos I've cited where there are some people who have been previously relatively lawless. Those traditionally used to be Zenyatta, Lucio, Mercy and D.Va, and in 2018 we've seen a little bit of expansion on them all apart from Zen. Lucio with his voice lines around Anniversary, we saw a bit about his father's tech, Vishkar's relationship with that tech, and Mercy asking the questions, a bit more about his character, as well as expansion of it generally in terms of him interacting with a lot of people. Mercy, well, she's still lacking something sort of like a comic or an animated short, very much like Lucio still, but around Brigitte's launch with Operation White Dome, we saw a bit more into her relationship with the Lindholm family and a few teasers and hints there. So certainly, I'm no artist, but in terms of drawing a picture of these characters, we've had a lot of sort of sketching of the background around Lucio and Mercy, I think, this year, or certainly some rather than having none. Now D.Va, of course, well, previously lawless, apart from her bio, now has a whole animated short, so that's really filled in her character. Who does that leave? Well, if it's not McCree, in terms of other animated short theories, I'm going to go for Zenyatta. That would be a real big one. I've not seen any changes to Nepal on the PTR, the level, so far as I can see. If Zen was going to be in an animated short, that would feel a logical place to go and send him in terms of taking his journey back after he was wandering the world after the assassination of Takata Mondata in the events of Live. Zen going back to Nepal as a place of significance for him would probably make sense for a short, I would speculate, but no changes on that level just yet. So, if not Zen, a McCree short with the change in this payload, well, what can it mean? Maybe the gang have got the weapon, maybe McCree is trying to stop this happening, maybe he's going to negotiate with them or do something like that. Maybe a flashback to a young McCree, I'm sure that would be very popular. People would love to see a younger Reyes and a younger McCree, that would be very popular with a bunch of people who love those characters, and the opportunity to reflect on the present day. So if this change heralds a short, I could certainly see being McCree serving the story in terms of reflecting on the past, having a look at the present, and then maybe moving things onward again in terms of McCree answers the recall or not. What do we not actually know about this? Well, it just could be to do with a new hero, but then what would it actually mean? It would be a little bit of a sideways kind of tangent, I think. It would have to be the relationship of whoever stole this, for example, or used this particular weapon or item from inside this particular payload. Now, a lot of people have said maybe, a Deadlock hero. I think that could be kind of interesting. You know, a Deadlock Gang member, a Deadlock hero, anti-hero, someone that McCree maybe faces off with or sort of faces up to in an animated short. That could be kind of interesting. Remember, of course, that animated shorts don't necessarily have to time with the heroes being announced. We had Reinhardt last year, and of course the hero release was Moira. We then had Sombra, and then Infiltration featured Sombra in that particular mission in Volskaya Industries, which was pretty sweet. So the short doesn't necessarily have to tie to the hero being announced, but if it was a Deadlock hero, that could kind of tie up quite neatly. At the moment, I've been looking around the PTR of the other levels. I've not seen any changes yet, but that's quite a lot of footwork to do and looking around to do. So if you have looked around the levels on the PTR and PC, seen any other changes to any other levels, I'd love to know about them in the comments below. If this is a hint to a new hero, well, last year it was fairly direct. I mean, Moira was looking at Mercy's papers in Oasis University, and then we learned that she was Minister of Genetics in Oasis. Very interesting, but also kind of direct. So this one, if it was a hint to a new hero, would probably be a little bit more sort of circumspect, unless of course it's a Deadlock Gang hero, anti-hero, villain or similar. One other thing. Let's not forget as well that Oasis was kind of announced at Blizzcon and then launched in early 2017. Now, we then heard some voice lines and interactions in Oasis which basically said Reaper was going to visit an old friend, and that old friend in late 2017 turned out to be Moira. So throughout the course of 2017 there were little hints to Moira, Reaper going and visiting someone, so Reaper visiting Moira in Oasis was what that voice line referred to, and those voice lines were in the game files since Oasis the map launched. So in terms of trying to work out a new hero, it's probably worth having a look back and seeing if there's anything that has really come up, has really hinted to anything around Route 66. Nothing since these, apart from these voice lines recently about Genji and McCree having a discussion about why are you coming back here again, and that's the only kind of interchange of those, apart from Widowmaker's line about having an eventful holiday in Ilios that also popped up with the Halloween patches. Actual map model and texture wise, there have been various hints possibly pointing to Widow visiting Ilios since the events of Masquerade, maybe the summer games of last year. So really that would kind of be quite an old thread to be picked up again now, but why has the voice line just popped up now? Could be an interesting one. What would Widow be doing there? We know that Talon activity, Athena in the dropships on Ilios has referred to Talon potential activity in the ruins and around the dig sites since Ilios itself was launched. Those files have been there absolutely ages, and those sounds, if you run up to the top of Athena's dropship, you can hear in game as well. So to me it still feels like Route 66 going to be interesting. A new hero at Blizzcon, a new animated short. If we're not getting a map, we should be definitely getting those two. It's been the trend for the last 2 years after all. Maybe a Deadlock related hero. It'd be fascinating to see what happens. We won't have long to wait, only a week to go. What do you think? Do let me know in the comments below. Either way, I'm very excited for BlizzCon next week. There has of course been a story section opened of the Overwatch official forums if you ever visit there, which means that hopefully if they're opening a new story section of the forums, there's going to be something story related to talk about. Obviously we have a new hero animated short, most hopefully, and I will leave you with this. It's a bit of Diablo related news, but I think it actually could reflect on Overwatch. Now there was a TV producer who tweeted out that he was in the running, or he was looking to be working on a Diablo animated series on Netflix, and then he very quickly removed that to tweet. It did waves in the Diablo community. There is going to be, by the looks of things, lots of Diablo announcements at BlizzCon this year. It's going to be a Diablo year. So if there is a Diablo animated series that is potentially being worked on, then why not an Overwatch one, right? Diablo, if that's being worked on, it would be crazy not to work on an Overwatch one. Now, of course, lore-wise, it has been a quiet year with the comics and things like that, a lot quieter than previous years. I can't help but think that outside of a new hero, outside of an animated short, there are going to be some other big Overwatch announcements this year, and if they're not launching or releasing a map, Jeff's justification in the developer update was that they thought that it kind of got overshadowed a bit, or it sort of got lost with everything else going on, and it's a big event in itself. So I think there's going to be something big announced, that they don't want to overshadow the map, so they're going to put the map separately, and I really hope that's something to do with lore. Could it be a series of novels? Could it be a novel? Could it be new comic books or a new comic series? Don't forget, of course, the new Overwatch writer who's been hired to the team that I covered in a video on this channel as well. So I'm very, very excited to see what's going to be happening from BlizzCon. I'll be covering it all. Do subscribe. You'll get all of the news from me as it comes out the first weekend of November, and I'll be talking about everything to do with lore and more as much as I can. What would you like to see come from BlizzCon 2018? What do you think for a new hero? How about this new animated short? What do you think will be coming? Please let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below. Cheers for tuning in. Throw a like, subscribe if you enjoyed this. All my Overwatch lore, interactions and voice lines ever since Overwatch launched and onwards are here to do with hero lore and everything else, map lore as well if you like Route 66, want to catch up on that. Big thanks to my patrons on Patreon who make all my videos possible. If you'd like to try and support the channel, visit patreon.com/Hammeh. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammeh. Take it easy.